Welcome to the Mind Positivo podcast. My name is Biagio, and today I'm joined by an amazing individual who, her name is Tara Cannistraci. She's an Italian-American stand-up comedian, born and raised in the Bronx, New York, and is currently on tour throughout the United States and Canada, and hopefully she'll come to Australia one day. She's also a creator and producer. Welcome, Tara, to the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Biagio. Thank you. What time is it? Like 11 a.m. your time?
11 a.m. our time here. Yeah, I think it's what, 7 p.m. your time?
7 p.m. Yeah.
So I know you're on tour and really appreciate you taking the time out to join us.
Absolutely.
All right, that's all good. It's all good. It's all live. It's all good. First question is, comedy is probably one, I mean, I'm not a comedian, but I understand that comedy is probably one of the most difficult gigs in the arts world that you can actually get into. How did you get into it, and how do you find the comedy world?
I would definitely agree that comedy is probably one of the hardest things you can do. You're actually walking onto a stage completely by yourself, trying to engage an entire audience and make them laugh universally at the same time. So the thought of it actually sounds insane, I think. As far as what drew me to, I was always drawn to comedy from a very early age. A toddler, as a little girl, I was always watching it on TV, fascinated by comedians. And I always wanted to pursue comedy. But, you know, and I read a book called The Alchemist, which I'm sure you're very familiar with. While you have, if you haven't read it yet, you should. It's a book called The Alchemist, and it talks about how we know from a very early age what we truly want to be, but how society and social norms can sometimes push our dreams down, and we can almost think that they're unattainable. And so for a lot of years, I don't think I pursued comedy. I did little things here and there, but I got to a point where I felt really uncomfortable, even watching other people do comedy or seeing it on TV, because I felt I was supposed to be doing it. So like anything, you know, you take the first step. And I did. I took the first step. I got on a stage. I got my first laugh, and I was like, I'm amazing. This is going to be easy. And then you struggle for, 10 years after that. And you really begin to see, what the journey is like, and if it's really attainable.
Yeah, definitely working hard is always part of the ingredient, whatever it is. Did you find, we've got a Italian-Australian comedian by the name of Joe Avati that's from Sydney. I don't know if you know Joe.
Yes, I'm familiar with Joe.
Yeah,
he was actually in New York right before the pandemic. He had messaged me to come to one of his shows because he had heard about me.
Yeah.
And he said maybe we can work together, and then the pandemic
that'll
hit.
Be a great combination.
Yeah.
He was in an interview. He was saying that he was a shy kid, and to be not popular, but to fit in, comedy and making people laugh was what got him in the mix. So to be part of the cool kids, or the school kids, right? So, and growing up in the Bronx, in New York, and from an Italian background, was it difficult, or was there any challenges for you?
I was not shy. In my family, you couldn't be shy if you wanted to be heard. We're a loud Bronx Italian family. We scream, we don't speak. So I never was really shy. I was always trying to be funny from an early age. I would tell jokes that were endless, boring stories. I was always trying to be the center of attention. I was my mother's only child. So I would, spend all day Saturdays putting on performances in my living room for her and the cat. I definitely wasn't the shy child, the shy kid in school. I think when you speak to a lot of comedians, with the exception of maybe Jerry Seinfeld, a lot of comedians feel like they've had like a dark past, or they used comedy as a survival skill. And I can say that about certain aspects of my life. But I also think it's genetic. even though my parents aren't stand-up comedians, or my grandfather wasn't a stand-up comedian, they had a very natural sense of humor, quick wit. They were quick-witted, and I think I always had that. I'm sharp and I'm quick, which helps you when you're on stage. So it wasn't hard to know that I was funny, because you could always be funny in a group of friends, but it's definitely a completely different dynamic when you're going to do actual stand-up comedy. There's an art form to it. So it's not like you're just being funny with your friends. You're being funny in a different way when you decide to pursue stand-up.
Yeah, for sure. And I always have a saying that comedy creates happiness, happiness creates health, good health.
Mm-hmm.
With what you do, I mean, given the times we're in, but even before COVID,
Mm-hmm.
times can get tough for people in life in general. Do you find when you're performing, you can see the crowd actually mood change and you know what I mean, have that happiness, gives them that joy for an hour and a half. It's like going to a concert and just going crazy for a while, right?
You're letting people escape for an hour and a half, Prior to the pandemic, and I did joke, I said, I can't believe I found out this year, we're not essential. But laughing is, they always say laughter is the best medicine. And here we are in the middle of a pandemic, and none of us can really do what we love. But I remember right before the pandemic, a woman came over to me after a show, and she said, my daughter's engagement just broke up, and I'm taking care of my father. And I said to myself, I feel like I'm never going to laugh again. I'm never going to be happy again. She goes, and then I came to this comedy show and I just laughed. And the first time I laughed, I knew everything was going to be okay. And you're like, oh my God, to be able to give that to somebody. And she was like, thank you. She was like, thank you. And I just remember being like, we're providing a service.
Yeah.
I think if you do comedy with the right intent, to serve others, you become a better comedian.
Right. And do you find, I'm not a comedian or an artist, but when we put out content or anything, we get some beautiful messages back. Mm-hmm. And when I read them, I just melt. I go, oh my God, that's what it's. Do you find that when people say, oh, you changed my life, or you made me happy?
You've inspired me, or my wife is sick and she's a fan, and you make her laugh, or you've brought so much joy to us this year, we've had a hard year, or absolutely, you just it humbles you real quick.
Yeah. And it's fantastic, because I know myself personally, some people go do yoga, meditate. For me, it's comedy and music.
Me too.
So that's my meditation. They go, what do you do? Do you do yoga? I cannot do yoga. I'll either listen to music or listen to comedy. And obviously we listen to yourself. We listen to, all the big names that are around. Obviously being Italian, I don't mind. I love Sebastian and Pete Corelli. They're hilarious. But also when you looking at Eddie Murphy, when I was growing up, mm-hmm. he didn't have to say anything. I just start laughing.
Right.
Just his look,
Right.
And that joy that you give to other people is invaluable.
Completely. And I don't speak just for myself, but I've received it. It was a gift I received from other comedians, and I felt like I want to do that. I want to do that for people, so it definitely, and being able to watch a comedian you can relate to, there's nothing better, because you can sit there and there's a mutual understanding, even if you're just watching somebody on TV. It's like you're having a conversation with that person.
Absolutely.
So it becomes very intimate. It becomes a moment you're having with that person.
Yeah. And I was reading about Dean Martin, Jerry Lewis, when they started, and I think it was just after the war, and they were so funny, and people were looking for humor or something, that there was a line of kilometers of people line up to watch their shows. I mean, they were hilarious, right? Mm-hmm. But the point is, happiness comes from comedy and even music. Mm-hmm. And so
music is an escape for me as well.
There's something, I have different mood levels from when I don't listen to 100%. Listen.
Yes, there's something to be said. I think somebody said about driving alone in your car, listening to the radio. Like, just having that moment, I can, like, on my way to a show, whether I need to get pumped up or excited for something, or if I'm nervous about something, or if I just need to like calm myself or get in the right frame of mind if I'm upset, music to me has always been an escape.
Yeah, it's great. I go to music when I go to public speaking, keynote speaking in front of group. Not that I'm nervous or anything, but I just put that one song on and then we're ready to go, right? But
Yeah.
so with obviously you work with other great comedian and artists. Do you find you all have the same sort of, I mean, it's a challenging life, right? I mean, you're on the road all the time, right? You don't,
Yeah.
never home,
And
you're always traveling.
you're exhausted all of the time. Like, I was so tired before this podcast.
Yeah.
I power naps. You find your things that you have to do, your routines to, I got no sleep on Thursday night, and then on Thursday evening, and then I was on a plane to Vegas, on Friday, and now you're dealing with a time difference, and there's just so many factors that go into getting in the right frame of mind and feeling good. Because if you don't feel well on stage, it's gonna.
People can tell straight away, right?
100%, it's gonna show.
So when those challenges do come about, what are the one or two things that you do other than, power nap and try to sleep is obviously the best thing to rest, and in the music, but is there anything else? Do you meditate? Do you do yoga or anything like that? Or
I wish I could say I could be alone with my thoughts, but that would not make me any calmer. So meditation is definitely, I'm not there yet. And I read so many great things about it. And so many other big comics have come out and say, oh, I meditate 3 times a day, or I don't. I work out. Definitely. That's something that helps me as far as being anxious, or, gets me in the right, definitely helps with the endorphins, I should say. I like to power nap. I like before a big show, maybe 2 to 3 hours before the show, I'll have a dish of pasta. That's like a thing, like, because I know I'm not going to eat immediately before the show because I'm going to be too nervous. I want to charge this, and after you get off the show, the adrenaline is running.
Still going.
So I have, like, that's one thing I've done. I've like that I realize I eat like a nice something really hearty like 3 hours before, and then I'm good for a big show anyway.
And are your shows different, say, for the US audience to the Canadian audience?
I mean, I do write. I will write, like, I'm going to Canada in March. So I have some stories about last time I was in Woodbridge, and because people want to feel like you're talking to them specifically.
Yeah.
So some part of my comedy will change depending on the audience I'm performing for, because you're trying to serve, that population of people.
Yeah. I mean, Australia is similar to Canada because we're both from the Commonwealth. So so it'd be great when you come out here.
I'm looking forward to it.
I think you do really well here, to be honest. I love your show. That's
going to be some time change for me to get used to.
Yeah, it'll be a couple of days to get over the jet lag, but it's not too bad. Australia's okay.
Yeah.
So with the comedy world and just entertainment in general, particularly in the US, it's so many people competing for the audience. So you mentioned the grind and 10 years of working. I mean, even the top artists, like even say the Kevin Hart's or Seinfeld's, they still got to grind. Is that correct? They're still, even if you've made it.
That's the thing with comedy. It's always a grind. It's always, you're great, and then, okay, well, what's next? And, you're only as good as your last special, maybe, for some of the bigger names, and for some of the lower people on the comedy totem pole, it's like you're only as good as your last show or your last, so yes, it's always a grind. And there are great moments there. Like, when I did that second show for Chazz, I remember it was like New York City, 300 people. Wow. Probably one of the best shows I had ever done performance wise. So many connections from it. And then the next night I was like in this small bar, like for 17 people. And it's like, but that's part of the grind. Yeah. And that's part of what makes you better, is that you can't just say, okay, look, I did this great show, I don't got to go to work tomorrow. No, now in order to get the next big show, you got to keep working. And I always say comedy is like a muscle. It doesn't work unless you work, you have to keep working it out. Like
it's like athletes, they perform game day, but then they got back to training the next day. So
you can get a home run, but if you get 3 strikeouts after that, people are going to remember the 3 strikeouts after that.
You go 0 to 0 in a few seconds. But for those all of our audience, we have audience from Africa, Southeast Asia, all over the world. Chazz Palminteri is one of the legends of the screen and movies from the Bronx Tales. For those who don't know who Chazz is, that's who Chazz is.
My reference. Sorry, I want to plug this in. I was not.
And you have got a new album, right?
Yes.
Uncle
It
Vinny's.
just came out. Yes. Greetings from Uncle Vinny's.
Greetings from Uncle Vinny.
Yes, it just came out last Tuesday on Pandora, and this Tuesday was the worldwide release. So it's streaming everywhere you can listen to podcasts. It's actually it was 5 comedians, and we decided to do a clean comedy album. So 5 comedians. I did 20 minutes, only 19 bites on my tongue, trying to not
swear.
Anything off. Yeah, no. But it's an album I'm really proud of. It's great comedy, and it's comedy you can listen to, with anybody.
Like here, we don't have access to Pandora for some reason, but now it's gone global. I'll be definitely checking out I think you got 4 or 5 tracks on there.
Yes, I have 4 tracks.
4 tracks, yeah. And definitely your style of humor and comedy will suit the Australians because the PC part of it is not as heavy as in some other countries, let's say.
Okay.
So you can sort of get away. I mean, Joe will tell you that. Joe's been doing it for 25 years now. He's so he's pretty good. So and we also got another act that started out. They're called Sushi Mango, 3 Italian Sicilians in Australia. So they're
I'm
really
half Sicilian. I'm half Sicilian.
Half Sicilian, yeah.
Only the good half. Okay.
The good half, of course. I mean, I was born in Italy, so I'm Calabrian. So I came out when I was 8 months.
Your head is that hard on this video. I'm not.
Sorry, it's scary. I normally have a different background, but it's okay. I've got my Sydney background today. But so that's come out. The album's come out, and you've got more tours coming in the US and in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
So are they going to go all year? When's that? How's that sort of going for you?
It's been a real climb. March of 2020, I was so excited I was booked till December, March of 2020. And then right now I feel post-pandemic, we go month to month. And my Canadian shows, I have 5 shows coming up in Ontario over the course of 5 days. And it's been rescheduled already 3 times. So I'm hoping that this is really it. It's going to be March 23rd to the 27th. But as of right now, we're taking it month by month here, especially in New York. We got hit pretty hard, and we started shutting down again. And I know you guys in Australia.
Yeah, we were locked down, and then we reopened. And we got the Omicron fella, and but it's spreading pretty quick, and it's nasty.
I don't know if the media portrays everything the way it really is, but we were hearing. And I actually spoke to an Australian comic at a show a few weeks back who said he could only go within a certain miles of his house during
So where I am,
2 hours of the time.
During the Delta period, we were areas of concern. So the suburbs or the boroughs, you call them, we could only go 5 or 7 k's from our home. So only for food and medication. That's when it was really bad last year. But now they've just opened up because a high vaccination rate, but it's still very challenging for a lot of Australians. But some of the stories you hear were true. The tough.
Yes, somebody said they were saying you shouldn't talk to your neighbors, or they were making references don't talk to people. And I'm like, what is that? What would that look like if we were here as a New York Italian? If we couldn't talk to people and we had to do sign language, we'd be all the how are you speaking? We don't know,
It's definitely challenging, but we're optimistic that hopefully we'll get through to the next stage, which will be where we can all travel again, and the likes of yourself and perform in Australia and vice versa.
I'm
So
hoping we're at the end. It feels like it's the end. I don't want to be too optimistic.
hopefully, and but we'll see how that goes. But the I wanted to sort of wrap with this, if I can, is when you get into the industry, the comedy, you mentioned how you started. Is it challenging being in different sort of cities in the US, or is comedy across the US popular everywhere, and there's comedy stores everywhere? Because in Sydney, to give an example, there's Sydney and Melbourne, or the main states, will have maybe one or two places you can go to perform. What's it like in the US? Do you have a lot of clubs and stuff you can perform
I
at?
mean, nothing is like New York or California, I'd imagine, where there's major comedy clubs. You have big name comedy clubs, and you also have alternative rooms where comedy could be going on, and it is in restaurants and bars and underground places. Like, comedy is, New York City is like the Mecca. I'm sure Chicago, California, all those places have the big name clubs, and then they have just rooms you can work all the time. And I would say to any aspiring comedian, the best thing you can do is get up on stage every night in the beginning.
And just keep performing.
So it depends where that opportunity is going to happen for you. Like, I just went to Vegas. I was in Las Vegas this week, and they have, a few big clubs and some rooms that they're working. But even in a big space, in a big entertainment, place like Las Vegas, it still doesn't compare to all the shows that are happening here in New York.
In New York, right? Okay.
Yeah, or California, or places like that. So yes, there are places when I tour where there's the one comedy club, and there I am, and that's really all that's going on. So the local comics, don't get the opportunity, I guess, to work as much or do as much. So I tell every new comedian I meet, you have to get up on stage as much as you can. You have to get in really good with any local club that you have, so that you can work and you can meet nationally touring headliners, so that you can make those connections. And you have to create your own opportunities. I started doing that. In fact, I when Chazz had come to see me, I had pitched to him, hey, let's do a show together. I'll produce the show. You have to create those opportunities to say, I'm going to produce my own comedy show, even if it's an open mic. Create your own opportunity.
Yeah, so create your own lane and be proactive. I mean, we did the similar thing in Mind Positivo, where, as you know, you'll always get knockbacks. People won't want to give you the opportunity, but thank God we've created our own lane, and we've got so many views and followers, which is good. Final question for let's say young everybody in general. I know when you decided to go, well, correct me if I'm wrong, when you decided to go into comedy, you go, this is what I want to do, and I'm just going to go for it. What advice would you give individuals who are doing something, maybe they're just doing it because they got to do it, but they don't really like it? What advice would you give them?
Do I say quit your day job immediately and go pursue your passion? No, I understand that if you've waited to a certain point, we have obligations and responsibilities. However, I started when I thought it was too late. And I remember, and I spoke about this on Chazz's podcast that you heard. I remember saying, okay, I'm at this age and I haven't pursued my dream yet. But 10 years from now, I'm gonna have still not pursued it, and I'm gonna say all that time could have passed when I could have just started. So I think my advice is to just start, a small start. I wasn't on stage in front of 300 people my first show, or my first year for that matter. I looked into maybe taking a comedy writing class, or I went to an open mic. Was I doing it every single night the minute I started? No. But I started. And I think you don't know until you try. And the minute I tried, I knew that this is what I wanted to do. And I knew that I was going to have to make a lot of sacrifices to get to a certain point. And it's hard, because, the business itself, offers a lot of rejection. And, there are highs and there are lows. But consistency, sticking with it, not getting too, down on yourself when something doesn't go right. it's the best advice I could give anyone, to not just being a stand-up comedian. There are people, all over the world. I do recommend. I don't know. Have you read The Alchemist, Biagio?
No, I haven't, but I'll check it out.
So it's a simple novel. You're gonna read the first 2 pages and be like, why is Tara making me read a book about a shepherd boy? What does this have to do with life and pursuing your dreams? But there are just so many messages in it that I recommend to anybody who hasn't pursued their dream to read that book. Maybe start there. Maybe start with opening a page to a book and having it inspire you in some way.
Great, and I'll definitely check it out. And Tara, if people want to find you, you're at Tara Jokes.
Tara Jokes.
TARAJOKES.
In your accent, I think you spelled it right, but I almost can't tell.
I'll let you do it. It's the same accent.
Yeah, TARAJOKES. Yes.
That's right. No, that's fantastic. And all your socials have the same profile name?
At Tara Jokes, and then tarajokes.com is my website.
Okay, fantastic. All right. Well, hopefully we can have you back. And if there's anything we can do to help, help you even out here in Australia, let us know. Happy to help promote you out here. I mean, we're not a monetized organization, but love to help people who, like yourself, good people.
I'd love to come over and tell some jokes for you guys.
Oh, I'm sure you'll be a hit for sure. And once again, thank you so much for taking the time to join me.
Absolutely.
Really appreciate it. And hopefully we can talk soon.
Yes,
thank you very much.
Stay well and stay safe. Thank you for having me.
No worries. You take care. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.